The steal by Iverson, posting in. He wins it. He won the game. Be there to say absolutely no. Three from Scott. Yeah, do you love this game?
Yes, it is the trade deadline eve, the Sixers Talk podcast in your ear. Thanks for being with us once again. Danny Pommells here. The podcast brought to you by Wilmington University, WilmU Works, my guy, Ben Berry, producer, co-host extraordinaire. Let's talk some Sixers basketball, shall we? You should be feeling good, Sixers fans. The Sixers 9-1 in their last 10 games. You know, I'm sticking with the March mentality of survive and advance. It was a beautiful first half against the Warriors, an ugly second half, but when they did, as the Sixers take care of business, finishing out this month of March, Ben, where the Lakers, Clippers, and Nuggets are awaiting them here on this West Coast road trip. But hey, either way, you know, ugly wins, pretty wins, win is a win. And you got to feel good about the fact they pulled that out last night and figured out a way to get the victory.
Feel good that they got the victory. That third quarter was hard to watch.
Abysmal.
Of course, they had to make it harder than it needed to be. Didn't want any of us going to sleep too early. But no, they pounded the Warriors on the boards. Dwight Howard had 5 offensive rebounds. The Warriors had 6 overall. I think there was a 51-36 advantage on the glass. That was nice to see. Tobias Harris, you know, earning his money once again. 9 fourth quarter points, just really showing up clutch, dialing up the defense in the fourth quarter after the Warriors got back in the game. I liked everything I saw from beginning to end, minus that third quarter.
Yeah, I mean, you look at everything that's happened with this team and the disjointedness, and you go back to that Sacramento Kings game where they win without 3 starters in blowout fashion. So you're expecting them to beat these teams like without Steph Curry. And it's weird because they're on this road trip. And we always thought that this was a moment once the second half schedule was released, this road trip where we will find out some things about the Sixers team, but they don't get Steph Curry. They're not getting LeBron, no Embiid. Seth Curry is still working his way back. So this is still a disjointed team in a lot of ways. So give them credit, man, because listen, all due respect, they won 12 road games last year. They just reached their 12th win this season on the road here, 12-9 this season, 12-26 last year. This is a different team, man. They play better. The coaching is better. We need to really think about and take a step back about what this team was and how they couldn't figure out ways to get to victories when the other team would blitz them in the third quarter or, you know, erase their lead or really give them a chance to show their resolve, and then they wouldn't have any. But here, with under Doc Rivers, with Tobias Harris's leadership and his consistency, they are showing that they are a team that is a unified group and that they play well even without their stars. And we consistently see it over and over again. The Spurs, another game where they blew a team out where you might not have expected things to go that way. So I'm really interested to see what the decisions are at the trade deadline. We'll talk more about this game, but, you know, is it time to upset the apple cart? You know, we talked about this in the last podcast. Do you stand pat? Where are the areas where you can manipulate? We'll get to that a little bit later, but we got to give props to Tony Bradley for a minute.
8 for
here.
8.
Yo, 8 for 8. Josh Schrager tweeted out one of my great follows on Twitter, NBA Twitter, Sixers Twitter specifically. He tweeted out the fact that since Dikembe Mutombo in 2002, February 2002, this is the first Sixer to go 8 for 8 with a minimum of 8 attempts, like not miss a shot. So, man, this dude is really, you know, once again, he's coming into his own. He's finding his role. He's stepping up here in these starts without Joel Embiid and giving Doc Rivers the optionality to bring Dwight Howard off the bench. I don't know if you want to mess everything up or change. I know, you know, mess everything up isn't quite the right word, but change what they have with who you bring in. So it's like a delicate balance that the Sixers are trying to, you know, trying to master here, trying to navigate.
Well, I'm okay with them adding something into the cart, taking something out, because you're playing to win. And I don't know how many people are confident at this current moment how the team is orchestrated and set up that they're shooing to make the finals, let alone win it. So that's why I'm
Can you make a shoe-in move, though? How will you know it's a shoe-in move? Is it just like you'll know it when you see it type of thing, you think?
I think you'll know it when you
see we can get into names
like,
and stuff, but I'm just saying the general idea of like they're 31-13, 9-1 in their last 10, and then suddenly you're like, oh, they can get better. Let's just bring this guy in. Like it has to be the right person, the right situation, right scenario.
It's one of those things. They're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. If they make a move and it doesn't work out, it's going to be criticized. If it works, it's like, oh, Daryl Morey knows what he's doing. Doc is coaching it up, made it smooth. If they don't make a move and they make a deep playoff run, make it to the finals and possibly win it, oh, it was the right decision. But if they don't, it's like, they should have made a decision at the deadline. I'm a believer that you can always get better. You can, because if you're not getting better, the teams below you are getting better. So, and a lot of the players that we'll get to later, if they don't end up here in Philly, they can end up in Milwaukee, they can end up in Miami, they can end up in Brooklyn. Do you want the teams you have to run through to get better and possibly catch you if they're behind you?
Bro, that is a great point because we see what happened with PJ Tucker, going to Milwaukee, a guy the Sixers and supposedly Daryl Morey had some connection with. You see the fact that there's speculation that a player the Sixers are after or interested in or being considered for, it also might go to Miami Heat and Kyle Lowry. So like you got to play a little defense at the same time, like try to kind of run some interference and slow down what other teams are trying to do. Miami, a team that's getting hot, but we'll table that discussion for a little bit later in the podcast. But let's get back to last night. The Sixers build this gigantic lead and they give it up in the third quarter and then have to fight like dogs, for lack of a better term, to get the victory. That just does not happen under Brett Brown, and not to heap, all this disdain on Brett Brown or what have you. But listen, man, it is what it is. And the way the Sixers have progressed here under Doc Rivers, come the playoff time, these are the things that are going to matter. These are the things that are going to be what the Sixers can draw on in their tank that other teams might not, like Brooklyn, for instance, who doesn't have that, they're all boys. They're, Harden and Kyrie and Kevin Durant, they all like playing together and whatnot. But if you don't have those, moments where you've gone through the fire with your team, how can you know what the team will react like? Kyrie's taking, some PTO for his birthday while Harden and, Durant are trying to work their way back and Harden's, playing whatnot. But it's just weird that I think that these are the moments that will matter for the Sixers when it comes to that playoff, pressure cooker moment where I think other teams might not have it. Maybe the Bucks do. I don't see Brooklyn having that because they've been so disjointed. Maybe over these last, 20 games or so, that'll change for them where they'll start to play, more as a unit and be together and whatnot because, the COVID issues and Kyrie taking time off, Kevin Durant's, working his way back and whatnot. But I don't know, bro. I think that these are the things that the Sixers will have as a little feather in their cap, a moment that they can draw upon to say, we did it then, we can do it again.
So from what I hearing from you is you're really valuing the experience this team is going through together. Mm-hmm. And I think that's nice. It's a nice thing to say. It's nice on the outside. Experience doesn't mean anything. I don't value experience all that much. It means you've been in that situation before. It doesn't mean you'll succeed if you make it back to that situation. It also doesn't mean that you'll fail just because you haven't been there before. I've seen plenty of times in sports that the team with the more experience, they're not a shoo-in to win by any means.
No. Good point. Go ahead.
The Eagles Super Bowl team. I think we could all agree that the Patriots was the more experienced team, the coach that had been there plenty of times before, arguably the greatest quarterback, greatest football player of all time, Tom Brady, had been there plenty of time before, versus the Eagles, which talented team. Now, I also think lightning in the bottle, but they won. And I don't think a lot of people gave them the chance and the opportunity. That's why it's the whole underdog thing. Experience is great. It doesn't mean that it's going to give you the extra oomph, the extra lift when crunch time comes.
But I think, on the flip side, that is also what they're trying to look for in some of these players that they might acquire is like the playoff experience, playoff, battle tested, been around the block a few times. Like those type of guys have value. And we'll talk about, one of those dudes a bit later in Kyle Lowry. But, you make a good point. I see what you're saying. I just feel like this team had a lot of growing to do. They had a lot of maturing to do. And you're seeing that maturing coming in those moments. Ben Simmons, not shying away from, the big moment, being aggressive, developing his post game and that hook shot that we continue to see. Those moments don't come about unless he's forced to create half court offense where he wouldn't have to do that maybe if Joel Embiid was there. So it's like there's two sides of it, and I get your point, but I just feel like for this team in particular, the growth that they need to make and the steps they need to take forward, Kyrie and Kevin Durant have won championships. This team is still hungry. Milwaukee hasn't quite gotten to the level they want to, but they've had success in the regular season. The Sixers haven't been the top seed. They haven't had the best record. They haven't gotten those goals that they want to get to. So I feel like there's a growth and maturity that's happening with that. But we're all interested to see how it plays out. So I think that's the thing that, we're all going to be, with bated breath going through these next few weeks, trying to figure out what this team is and who they are. Was there anything else you took from last night's game besides, how much they dominated on the boards and whatnot? Because, I feel like when I'm looking at the game within the game, Tobias Harris to me, man, like once again, Draymond is there and he's barking and talking all this junk, but Tobias was the best player on the floor last night. I mean, Draymond might be the defensive player of the year, but Tobias's consistency, man, continues to shine through, 13 boards, a part of that, mastering them on the rebounds last night. I just continue to be impressed by him, man. It's just, I know how we've gone back and forth about him in the past, but I just continue to be impressed by him.
He's played phenomenal. 9 of his 25 came in the fourth quarter. He played all 12 minutes. He hit that go-ahead bucket and came back down. He's been the Sixers bucket getter when closing out games. It's been great. He's proved me and a lot of other fans wrong and a lot of naysayers. And this isn't me trying to stand my ground. This is me saying Tobias, Ben, Joel, Doc, they all have to do it in the playoffs. They can get the number 1 seed. But if they don't at least make it to the Eastern Conference Final, it's all for nothing.
Start college, build skills, and complete your degree with Wilmington University. 100% online options and affordable tuition make WilMU work for you. Learn more at wilmu.edu. The interesting thing about this trade deadline that's looming at 3 o'clock on Thursday is you look at all these other teams and what they may or might not have, where they are in the standings and whatnot. The Raptors are in the tank, bro. They have dropped their last 9 games. They're dropped to 11th in the East in that time frame. And here they are, potentially trading Kyle Lowry and Norman Powell, 2 of their, more valuable pieces. They're deciding basically not to make a playoff run. They're not going to try to, keep Kyle Lowry around or, leverage Norman Powell's abilities to try to, make a playoff push. They're going to build around Fred VanVleet, OJ Anunoby, and Pascal Siakam and build around those guys and ship away Norman Powell and Kyle Lowry. So that brings us back to your point earlier about the fact that there's a little defense the Sixers might have to play here because Lowry's one of his preferred destinations, maybe his most preferred destination, depending on, what you believe, is Miami. So, and he's looking for some money, maybe $50 million, along with being traded to whichever team he goes to. So I don't know if the Sixers quite fit that mold. And I'm also concerned at Lowry and his 35-year-oldness and the fact that he wants a new deal. He's on the last year of his deal. You bring him in, you have to be completely sure that this is the move that will get you at least to the NBA Finals, if not winning the whole thing, because Are they re-signing them? Like, what's the caveat? I feel like they would be better served making some, buy low opportunities, some less significant moves that will keep the core intact. And I include Danny Green in that core. The Sixers' top 6 players. Dwight Howard and the starting 5. I want to keep that core intact because they've rolled off a 31-13 record with what they have. I don't think they need to beat Brooklyn, but I don't know if they need to make a huge splash to do that. There are other guys like George Hill, somebody who I think might be a big pickup, a guy they can snag and not have to, sell the farm, so to speak. So some other names we'll get into, but what do you think about that? Are you sold on Lowry?
Several things. Like, even though I read Keith Pompey's tweet and I completely understood it, reading a minimum of 25 a year and hearing you say 50 million a year, hearing you say
or 50 million for 2 years, a 2-year deal.
Yeah, for 2 years. Yeah. It just hit differently than actually reading it. It's like,
he makes 30 this year. He makes over 30.
No, I hear you. It's like, do I want to do that for 2 more years? Like, because he wants the extension, and power to him for putting it out there. Like, hey, if you trade for me, this is what I want. Like,
be 37, and his birthday is on the day of the trade deadline. So Lowry's like, I'm not really gonna be paying attention to that. I'm gonna be celebrating my birthday, but be 37 at the end of this 2-year deal. Like, that's a big commitment, man.
Power to him. He wants his money. This money. I guess the question is for Daryl Morey and Doc and the Sixers is, if we don't get Kyle Lowry, does it make any of the other 3 teams in the East catch us or better? I think that could possibly happen with the Bucks, depending what they give up. I don't see him going to Brooklyn, but I don't think with his salary, it's just not going to work. But Miami, I know him and Gordon Dragic is a little bit of the same player. Lowry is a better defender. Man, what he could do to bring into the Heat culture and the leadership, that could make the Heat go on a run. I would love for the Sixers to get him. I don't know if I'm willing to give up some of the pieces it would take necessarily to get him. But if you don't make the move for Lowry, that means you have to get someone else, though, in my opinion, so you have more firepower.
Yeah, I'm just there's a little consternation there. Like, I'm a little worried about how, if you trade for Lowry, it has to be it. And I was talking to our producer for the Sixers pre and post game, Brian Brennan, last night, and he thinks the Lowry deal is the deal to make because you're getting Lowry with an opportunity to use what he's had and experience on this team where they need the 3-point shooting that he provides. They need the defense and, heady play that he provides. So he's sold on it. I'm just not quite sold. I think there are other smaller periphery moves to make. I've read that maybe the sticking point with the Heat deal is that they don't want to include Tyler Hero in a trade for Kyle Lowry. So
correct.
Listen, I agree with that. I don't think the Sixers have those type of young players. I would prefer to keep Matisse because I feel like he's more dynamic and unique. I think his shot can come along if he spends a summer in the gym, locked in the gym. I feel like there's more progress that can be made there, especially in a more typical offseason where you do get to work on your game and do things like that. But I just don't know if Lowry is the answer. And I could be wrong. I could definitely be wrong. I just feel like if you can snag a guy like George Hill, maybe, I mentioned Will Barton in the past. I was talking to Coach Lynham last night. He feels like Barton is still a guy who's going to demand, a higher level of commitment, first round pick, a young player, maybe expiring contract, something like that. So I feel like George Hill is a good example because he's versatile. He comes off the bench. He can shoot the 3. He can run the point. So that's the guy I'm looking at. And, once again, he has the playoff experience, but, there are these buy low opportunities I keep mentioning. Lauri Markkanen was a name that came out from the Chicago Bulls, who the Bulls are interested in shipping him away. Is he a player that I would be interested in? Yeah. Does he make it so the Sixers are better against Brooklyn? Probably not. But I'm going to leave that up to Daryl Morey to figure out who are those other guys. But he does serve the need of being a backup four or coming off the bench and spelling Tobias Harris a bit better than Mike Scott. So I don't know. I'm racking my brain of players, and we ran through some of them, in the last podcast. But is Norman Powell? Would you consider him? Would you trade for him instead of Kyle Lowry?
When I said Norman Powell Monday, you didn't think it was going to be realistic.
I didn't, but apparently, but also he wants to get paid too. He's trying to opt out of his deal at the end of the year.
That's probably why I wouldn't go with Norman Powell. It's someone else that wants to get paid that I think would be a great fit for the Sixers.
He's 27 though. So
there's someone younger than that I think would be a great fit for the Sixers. And people are not going to like this. They are not going to like this. And if you sit and think about it, the young kid, Lonzo Ball, I think he would be a perfect fit.
I've been trying to avoid saying his name.
Why? He shoots 38.5, 39% from beyond the arc, averaging 8 threes a game. So he's shooting a lot better than when he first got into the league. He's a great perimeter defender. Then that you also have someone else that can create and handle the ball, just creating the ball carrying duties. Like Lonzo Ball would be a solid fit. And I know a lot of people don't like his dad, LeVar, and I completely understand why. Even though I find him entirely hilarious. His dad hasn't said anything in 2 or 3 years, even though the younger brother was the lead candidate for Rookie of the Year. I think Lonzo would be a great fit for the Sixers team.
His dad did say, I was reading the other day, well, it was actually on a radio show, but it was hilarious, bro, because the host asked him, what can LaMelo learn from Michael Jordan? And he said nothing. He said he can't learn nothing from Michael Jordan. He was like, what he would have asked Jordan about how to play now? Like, he can't play in today's NBA. He should have been telling those guys before my son got there, giving them advice. Those are the people he should have been talking. So he just classic LeVar. Kind of makes a good point though. Like, why does he need to talk to LaMelo when all these other dudes been there before him? And
like LeVar's a loudmouth, but he's wildly entertaining, and like he has points, but it's just never any points I want to stand with because everything else he does. But it's wildly entertaining. But
we got a little bit of that with Jahlil Okafor's dad too.
Yeah, but think about it. You have Lonzo at the perimeter, Ben on the wings, Joel anchoring the paint. That it would be a nightmare for other teams.
I see it. Now, if you're telling me Lonzo and George Hill, okay, because George Hill gives you that kind of steady hand where Lonzo gives you a little bit of that, I can start cooking and hit a bunch of threes and change the dynamic of the game thing. And I think they might be able to keep, pretty much what they have as their nucleus without, touching Seth Curry or Danny Green. Like maybe they could, expiring contract. Lonzo's a restricted free agent, so maybe, New Orleans would benefit from Mike Scott's expiring contract. One of these young players, Maxey or Thibault, and a first round pick or something like that. It'll the Sixers pick is going to be way further down in the first round. So it's not that coveted, but I'm open-minded. Sell me on Lonzo. If anybody wants to jump in the comments, hit me on social media at Pommells NBCS and give me the Lonzo Ball spiel of why he needs to be a Sixer. I'm willing to listen. I just think when you look at Brooklyn, they got some rock steady, solid dudes who are going to be playoff tested, up to the task, ready for any challenge. I feel like Milwaukee with Drew Holiday has some of that as well. Chris Middleton, Giannis. I'm thinking like Ben can lock him up a little bit, but Drew and Chris Middleton may be a little bit more unpredictable. Though Tobias locked up Chris Middleton pretty well the last time they played. I feel like Drew Holiday is an X factor, and we saw how strong he played the last time they met the Bucks. But they're going to face Milwaukee in April twice and back-to-back games. We'll learn a lot there. But I'm looking for the difference makers, and I don't know if Lonzo, he doesn't have the playoff experience that we need to kind of complement what the Sixers have here and the talent that's already on board. is there another guy? Like, is there somebody else who you're?
I don't think playoff experience
Zach
is going to be
LaVine was like a long shot. Like I know they don't have a chance to get Zach LaVine. Like why
Zach
would
LaVine
the
was
Bulls trade him?
a far away long shot, and you would have to give up like Ben to get him, or maybe Tobias or something. Joel, you have to give up one of the top 3 players. Playoff experience is nice, and it's definitely something I appreciate. But as I just said about experience earlier, you can't just bank on.
I'm just trying to mitigate the risk. There's risk involved when you trade for Lonzo. Like
there's risk involved in going into the playoffs without anyone that can create for other people besides Ben Simmons.
On the flip side of that, there's risk involved when you trade for Kyle Lowry, but it's not immediate. It's if, hey, are we going to re-sign him? You know, does he want to be here long term? Where Lonzo, I don't quite know, you know, come the second season when everything is half court and it's slowed down and all possessions matter, is Lonzo Ball going to be the guy that you'll depend on to hit a big shot, play strong defense, be a team play? Like, I don't know if he's going to give you all the things that you need come a real big time playoff series in the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, Kyle Lowry, I know what he's going to give you, and you're kind of kicking the can down the road with all those decisions on his money and his longevity and how long he can play at a top level.
Well, if you're talking about what people are going to give us in the playoffs, like, are you confident? Like, and please
Norman
don't come
Powell,
at me.
I'm confident in him.
No, please don't come at me and being a Tobias hater. Are you confident that he's going to do something in the playoffs? Because we've seen him in the playoffs and it hasn't been good.
Well, if that's where you're going to go, I think that Tobias's consistency this season is the easiest thing to translate to the post. Like he's been this same 20 and the rebound, 20 points a game, the rebounding, the defense, like, and he's, like you said, he's got a bounty out on the rest of these teams, man. Like there's something there's something he's driving him. Something is driving him. Something is pushing him to be this, and the scheme fits. If that's where you want to go, though, on the playoff stuff,
Lonzo has been this 38% from beyond the arc and a solid defender for 2 years now.
But if that's where you want to go,
that's what the Sixers want, and that's what we need. The Sixers need.
But if that's where you want to go, and are you sure about Tobias Harris? Are you sure about Doc Rivers, Mr. I blew a 3-1 lead? Are you sure?
Are you sure? Get so close to the camera. You're making this hard for Tom. You're making me uncomfortable.
You're sure?
I feel so uncomfortable. Just got interrogated. You know, Doc, great signing. Everyone was excited, except me. When you look at the numbers, and he was NBA Finals champion. That was a decade ago.
He got some demons to exercise, babe. 3-1. He put a 3-1 lead the last time he was in the postseason. So he's got something to show and prove.
He's done it 3 or 4 times in his career too. He has a lot to prove. He needs to prove that he just wasn't with a good team in Boston with Tom Thibodeau's defense. The whole thing for him is they have to go further. They have to go further than Brett Brown did with the Sixers and prove that he's actually the coach to get them over the hump. If he doesn't, it's just like, we brought you here to win championships, and you're not.
Yeah, huge disappointment if they don't get what you think. Game 6, 7 Eastern Conference Finals. Like, what would be satisfactory to you? Do you think, like, aside from an NBA Finals berth, what would be satisfactory to you as far as a playoff run?
I think it has to be a Finals berth.
Dang.
It has to be a Finals berth.
The bar has been so high for this team for a long time, man. Like, a lot they brought on themselves, a lot because of trades and the players they've acquired. You trade for Jimmy Butler, trade for Tobias Harris, and then,
saying stuff like built for the playoffs.
Yeah, and, players and Joel want to be MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, and the GM, Elton Brand, saying that, we have championship aspirations. Brett Brown saying that the head coach. It's just weird because I'm trying to give it some levity, like some perspective. Like, okay, like only one team is going to win the whole thing. Correct. Out of the East, the Sixers are not favored. They are in first place, and that's, I think, where it kind of muddies itself up, because what we're trying to figure out is how they get from where they are now to the promised land. And is there a player that they can acquire here in these next 36 hours that can change the dynamic of how they match up against Brooklyn and get them to the NBA title? Like, that's a lot, man. It's a lot to ask. No?
It's a lot
I'm just trying to provide some perspective and a little levity. Like,
it's a lot to ask, but that's what Doc, that's what Daryl Morey, that's what Elton Brand signed up for a few years ago. That's what the players say they want. This not your moment, but making a deep playoff run, getting there, like that's what you guys say you're playing for.
All right, deep playoff run, but you said finals.
Yeah, that's
so
a
deep playoff run is Eastern. It can be Eastern Conference Finals, game 6 or 7. You know, you just went deep and long.
They need to make it deeper than that. Not.
I think I'm like processing how I feel through the podcast right now and trying to. So I am in win now mode. I am. So I don't have a problem trading the draft picks or one of these young players for the player that can put you in position to win the title. So I'm definitely in win now mode. I don't think they have a huge window of opportunity because of teams like Brooklyn and obviously what the Lakers have been able to build. So not only do you have to get through the East, you got to win against whoever's from the Western, comes out of the Western Conference. So, you know, and there's some disappointment in the fact that we don't get to see Embiid and all these other all-stars compete against each other over this West Coast trip. So I'm definitely in win now mode. So that does open me up to the idea of Kyle Lowry being the answer. I just don't know if giving up Danny Green, who is really shown to be a valuable piece of what the Sixers have, because you have to give him up in order to make the Lowry deal work because his money is needed to make things balance out.
Right.
So I think I just don't know if Lowry's the answer, and I think that's what it is. I want it to be the answer, and I want them to acquire a player of that ilk who can improve the three-point shooting, improve their defense, be interchangeable around the perimeter, but I don't know if he's the answer, man. And I'm still not coming to an easy solution. You know, I talked to you about it. I talked to the people at work when we go in about it, and I don't know if I'm coming to an easy, like, all right, cool, like Kyle Lowry. But I'm definitely in win now mode, and I'm looking for that splash that will make this team that much better or on par with Brooklyn. But I don't know, man. I'm still not there yet. Maybe, you know, we're going to have a live Sixers Talk podcast tomorrow coming your way at 3:00. Is that what time we go up then?
3:00, unless there's breaking news, then you, me, and Amy will be on ASAP.
All right. So we're standing by. I'm going to be on call from 10 a.m. until the wee hours. I think tomorrow's like a 16-hour day for me, but I don't know, man. I'm not sold. I'm not convinced. And I am more than happy to sit back and keep my mouth shut and wait for it all to transpire and then see how it plays out. But I think the window is small for the Sixers. Other teams are also improving. I don't know if they have what it takes as currently constructed to beat these other teams. And I'm not sure who the perfect fit will be to elevate them. Like, bro, think about it. Back in 2001, they traded for Dikembe Mutombo, who was already on pace to win Defensive Player of the Year. Then he came here and solidified it with the Iverson Sixers and whatnot. Like, that was the perfect move. They had to give up Theo Ratliff, who was a big fan favorite and played his heart out while he was here. But it was the move that they needed to make and were able to make to get to the title. Who is that player now? What is that piece? What is that, move that they could make to get, I don't know if there's a straight line to that.
I don't know if there's a player out there that puts this team just over the top like the Dikembe did for the Sixers in 2001. But you heard who the guy I want them to go after.
Yeah.
And I know it'll be expensive down the road, but I think that's something for win now. And
Lonzo is your guy?
Yeah. I think that's a great move for this season.
Is that the one move you're making, or are you trying to moves with that?
I will make others, but that would be the one I make right now. And I know you weren't crazy about it. Maybe Brian Brennan, Sixers pre- and post-game producer, isn't crazy. Noah, if he hears that, he might roll his eye and say Ben needs to shut up. I don't know how Crystal and Ty and Amy will feel about it. To me, it's the best move to make for now and the future.
I am not opposed to it, but I just think there is, bro, we are at the point where the pot is about to boil over. Like, they are at the apex. Like, this is the moment where it all can align for them to be, they're in first place. They have the second best record in the league, and they have a chance to make a move similar to 2001 that maybe can push them over the top. So it just has to be the right. So I'm not opposed to Lonzo. I just don't know if he checks as many boxes as I want. And he definitely gives them, so, restricted free agent gives them a chance to, keep him in-house. But I think that I'm sure that Daryl Morey and company have an ace up their sleeve. There's something that they're working on or have their eye on that will be like, okay. Like, I didn't see it work out. Like, think about the Al Horford and the Seth Curry stuff that they were able to pull off. Like, no one expected that to happen the way it did. So I'm optimistic. I'm a little nervous, but I'm also just like completely committed to like being all in with the excitement that's coming. So
It'll be a fun time. Join us tomorrow. It'll be a live pod. I believe it'll be on YouTube. Tom, if I'm wrong, you can definitely chime in here. It's going to be a good time. Me, Danny, and Amy, and some special guests possibly.
The Sixers Talk podcast, always here with all of your exciting perspectives, answers, the discussion points. It's cathartic for me. I hope you get the enjoyment out of it that we do. Be sure to join us tomorrow. As Ben mentioned, we will be all over the trade deadline as well as any moves made throughout the Eastern Conference to try to dissect things and break it down here in the Sixers Talk podcast. We appreciate you listening. Keep those 5-star ratings coming. Subscribe, comment, and give us your perspectives because we like to hear them. For Ben Berry, I'm Danny Pommells. This has been Sixers Talk podcast brought to you by Wilmington University. Wilm U Works.